What is the import of words? Does it make any difference? Now, as I say, I'm not a words listener tour. Do you listen to the words always?
Yes, well, I've made it a habit, Dick, as a singer, because naturally, as a performer, I think you're inclined to listen a little more closely than other people would. This particular song scared me, really, when I heard that we were going to release it, because I was a little bit afraid that people would not listen to the lyric, and this is the most important part of the song. But I'm awfully glad to see that people still have what we all rely upon, as we call it good taste, and they still have this, and that makes me very happy.
Greetings. Welcome back to your Blue Dreamer broadcast. I'm your most humble host as always, Dr. I, coming through with a new Blue Speak. Today I've got a very special guest, a Mr. Boppin Bailey George. How you doing, good
How's
sir?
How's it going?
Good, brother.
Doing good.
Right on. Thank you for joining me, and welcome to the Blue Dreamer broadcast.
Thanks for having me.
For sure. So, I always try and think of kind of where I first came across your music. I know for a fact that I found Vaden Landers, which I just interviewed recently a couple weeks ago or a month ago. And usually when I compile my playlists, that I put out to accompany the interviews, I'll find a certain genre or style, and then I just kind of dip into people that are in the same vicinity, And
Right.
I had even asked Vaden to kind of give me some names of people that he knew. Usually I like to keep it pretty recent, all recent artists within the last 3-4 years of releases.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think he brought up your name, but he gave me some others, and then you kind of were in the algorithm as well. So yeah, I heard what is the song called? About the aliens. What is it called?
Oh, Truth is Out There.
Truth is Out There. Yes. And yeah, right away I was just like, shit, I want to talk to this guy so bad. Like, I love your style, and it just totally fit the playlist, which I've already put out. I think it was the last one that I put out. And yeah, it was so cool. I was like, oh, dude, and Vaden's awesome. I loved talking to him, and I just love his style. And then recently I saw your guys's performance on WDVX. I think it was like a year ago or so. And
yeah, probably a year.
Yeah, I saw you on there with him, and I was like, oh shit, like I didn't know you guys were, what do I know? I don't know anything, but I'm just
right.
It was cool to see you with him, and then you sang a song, and I was like, oh, that's so cool. And that was this last weekend, so it's all fresh to me, but I want to say, like, I'm a recent fan to, I've always been a fan of rock and roll, and, since I was young, I've heard Little Richard and, Jerry Lee Lewis and all the, the main heads. But more recently, I've grown an affinity for country and bluegrass, and, and even with that, I grew up with, Willie Nelson and Waylon Jennings and, here and there, but I never loved it. I was just kind of like, who wants to hear country, blah, 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 blah. It's like old people music and whatnot.
Yeah.
But now I've just been finding so many artists and such good music, such good songs, and just good everything, and I've just latched on. And so with you and Vaden, I mean, he's pretty eclectic with his style, and you are as well. I mean, I've heard, the 2 songs that we're going to play, but I can only imagine what you're capable of, and seeing it in all these artists now that are doing all these different styles, and it's all kind of melding together. It's all blending, and it's so interesting to see, and I'm very fascinated by what's happening now and what's going on now, taking old styles and kind of blurring the lines. And so that's how I came across you, and so I, anytime I come across somebody that I hear, and the brain just starts swimming, I'm like, oh, I want to talk to this person if I can. So
Well, that's very interesting. That's very interesting how, because I've known Vaden forever,
sure,
and we both have come out of the Asheville busking scene.
okay,
That was like a very vibrant world, say about 10, 15 years ago, and a little bit before that.
yeah,
Everybody was good. And a lot of people have come out of that scene that have gone on to be very successful.
sure,
And it was a good like place to learn. But Vaden and I both came out, and what was cool about that was it wasn't just country like you would think.
sure.
So everybody was good at jazz. They were good at blues. They were good at all this music, Cajun music, gypsy jazz, all this stuff. And it really, elevated your playing because there were so many good people that you wanted to be good and better, to get those spots because there was only a handful of spots.
Yeah.
And so that's interesting. And, you're coming into country music at a very interesting time where there's kind of something for everybody right now.
Right.
For the longest time, it was old people music.
Right.
And, that's where I started, and we'll probably get into that here in a little bit. But right now, there's a lot of people doing any type of country music you want. You can find someone out there that's doing a new version, be it, outlaw country or folk punk or whatever. There's somebody out there doing it. And it's a very interesting time to get into country music.
Yeah, and that's why, what always draws me is, I've been a musician since I was 14 years old. I started playing guitar and, in rock and roll bands and like heavy, not heavy metal, but kind of, similar. And I grew up with, the whole new metal genre and grunge at the tail end and all that stuff, and it influenced me in a certain way. But to me, music is limitless. So I don't take it at face value. I take it from an artistic perspective of like, okay, what is this person doing? How are they doing it? And that's what I appreciate. Not just the style. That's why I don't like to use the term genre, because I'm like, it's a corporate kind of, usage of that word, and so I just call everything style. It's like, what's your style? Because style can mean a lot of things, and it's definitely a blending of everything right now. I mean, so how did you get started? Where did music infect you, in your blood, and like, how young, what really got you thinking in that way, that mindset?
Well, it's kind of interesting because the music that I grew up with, I was raised more or less by my grandparents.
Okay.
And I've spent a lot of my time, the vast majority of my life has been spent around older people.
Sure.
And the music that they were into, my grandmother especially had really good music taste. She was into 50s R&B, so people like Ruth Brown and the Drifters and people like that. We had a Hank Williams record. I remember that. And my sister, who's older than me, was into, when I was really young, she was into the 90s country. That was, Alan Jackson. She was really big into George Strait and stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm from Spartanburg, South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And a big thing in South Carolina is what they call beach music.
Okay.
And that's like music that you hear around Myrtle Beach, and there's a dance that goes with it. You ever see the movie Dirty Dancing? It's kind of that scene. Okay. It's kind of what that was kind of based off of.
Sure.
And they have a dance called the Shag. That's the South Carolina state dance. But all of that is done to 50s R&B, Motown, and all that. And that was a very big part of growing up too. And
well, it's funny because you say movie, sorry. And there was a movie actually called Shag in the late 80s, early 90s. Yeah, I remember that movie. Okay. I went to go watch it at the movie theaters when I was a kid. I remember that.
Okay, that's good. I'm glad you mentioned that because I'm from the town where the lead character is from.
Yeah.
So she lives in Spartanburg,
Nice.
South Carolina, and she's going to Myrtle Beach.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm from, is Spartanburg, South Carolina, which has a big music background of all types that I'm sure I'll mention it again because it's very influential on my playing. But as far as getting into music as a musician, when I was really young, I wanted to be a cartoonist. That was my thing. I wanted to be an animator. I studied old cartoons, and I was really into it. I still am.
Cool.
But I would draw comics. I was that kind of kid, and I didn't really think about music that much. But my mother bought me a banjo it would have been the Christmas of 2008. And I didn't really think much about it, but she contracted cancer and died in that January, following January. And I was 11. I just turned 11. My birthday's in December. And it's one of those cosmic things that you can't really explain. So that's when I moved in full time with my grandparents, which I was already spending a lot of time with them anyway. But that same week, the station RFD TV, I don't know if you're familiar with that.
No.
It's a cable station.
Okay.
Caters to rural audiences. Anyway, RFD TV started rerunning episodes of Hee Haw.
Okay.
And the same week that my mother passed.
Okay.
And I remember watching Hee Haw for the first time. And a guy named Roy Acuff was on, and he sang Wabash Cannonball, which we're going to play later.
Yeah.
And something about it just struck me. And I don't know what it was per se. But from that point on, I've always been the type of person that when I get into something, I go in all the way.
Sure.
And I want to get to the bottom of it. And I really have that kind of personality. So immediately overnight, I started learning how to play the banjo, because there's a guy on there named Grandpa Jones and a guy named String Bean and everything. And I took them and I looked at their influences, because I've always been interested in history too.
Sure.
So I looked at their influences, and that led me to old time music. And luckily enough, South Carolina had a big old time music heritage. This is music pre-bluegrass, string band music, kind of similar to what's in Oh Brother Where Art Thou, that sort of thing, that era. And anyway, I just went from there and started collecting records, and 78s, then 45s and LPs, and it's just grown, and that's how I got the ball rolling as a musician.
And how old were you?
I was 11.
Wow. So what's your record collection like?
Oh God.
How much space do you take up?
Well, it's funny because I have a minuscule apartment. I have
right.
But there's at least 1,200.
Wow. Nice.
At least between all the 78s and all the 45s and all the LPs.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Sure.
I've never sat down and counted everything, but it's got to be close to that.
For sure. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And so did you start playing banjo since that's what you had, or like instrument?
Yes, banjo was my first instrument.
Okay.
And I got really into all of the regional styles of banjo playing.
Okay.
A lot of people don't really realize that there's a lot of different ways to play banjo, and a lot of that depends on the region of the country that you live in and the time period that you're studying and everything. And I wanted to learn all of it, and so I went on a quest to learn all of it. And it's funny, I don't really play banjo much anymore,
right?
Professionally, because I got to the bottom of it by the time I was like 18. I'd learned how to play everything, and it didn't have any interest in me anymore.
You got over it.
Not to say that I don't play the banjo from time to time, but
yeah,
I learned everything I wanted to learn. I moved on to other instruments,
Do you, when you write songs, do you plan on having banjo in it, or do you incorporate, into?
It's interesting. I
Just because
I've only
it so
recently,
well, is there still room for it in what you're doing? What you're trying to do, or?
well, yeah, I was really into bluegrass as a teen,
Mhm.
and I went to East Tennessee State University, which has a pretty famous bluegrass program
Okay.
there, where you can actually like get a degree in bluegrass.
Hmm.
And I was so engrossed with it, and so engrossed in old time music and bluegrass music, early country music, and everything, that I didn't actually start writing songs until fairly recent.
Okay.
Um,
Like how long ago would
the
you say?
Truth Is Out There is like the first song,
Oh wow.
quote unquote, that I've ever like written and put out and all that sort of thing,
Sure.
that is from the ground up.
Yeah.
And I was so interested in learning obscure songs
Sure.
that I never had to write anything, because people kind of assumed that I wrote these songs in a way.
Right.
Not that I misled them or anything,
Sure.
but the covers were so obscure that I didn't really need to write songs, because nobody had heard the songs I was covering.
Yeah, you had a knowledge of music that most people probably aren't aware of, and that's, yeah, of course. Why would you not? And especially if people want to hear it, I mean, I doubt anyone's complaining and saying, calling
I've
you a
resisted
fraud
the
or
title. Right. I've resisted the title of songwriter for a long time.
Sure.
Because in my mind, I'm very opinionated too. And
same.
I have, so whenever I hear songwriter, I think of like dude with a guitar at a coffee shop,
sure,
and playing the worst songs. To me, a songwriter is somebody that writes hit records.
Okay.
And
got you.
I'm more of a person who occasionally writes songs, if that makes sense.
Like the album credit, basically the songwriter.
Right.
Sure.
I'm more of a person that when inspiration strikes, I'll take a pencil and write it down.
Yeah.
But so when people like, when Truth Is Out There came out, people were like, "Oh, you're a songwriter," and I was like, "No, I'm not a songwriter."
Like, I wrote
I've started to warm up to
it. I wrote a song.
That's what I would tell people. And I've gotten better. I've written over the past year or so. I've written a handful, an EP's worth that I hope to have come out soon. But I was always resistant to that term songwriter. Yeah. But now I've started to warm up to it and accept it. If people want to call me a songwriter, okay. But I consider myself more of a person who writes songs.
Sure, of course. And so who would you say now that you're, new to delving into songwriting, who's your biggest influence? I mean, I'm sure there's a plethora of influence, but is there a certain style that you're aiming for in writing songs, or is just whatever works, or and who's kind of behind that? It's hard to hyper focus on this or that, like, oh, this guy influences my guitar, this person influences my vocal, but I find that there can always be kind of a common ground between all of it, and it's or style.
Really. As far as writing goes, I'm influenced more by visuals than songwriters. One of my favorite songwriters is a guy named Leon Payne, who wrote the song Lost Highway that a lot of people assume Hank Williams wrote.
Sure.
And he was blind. Oh, wow. But one of the things that strikes me is that his songs are so visual.
Okay.
There's a song he wrote called Psycho that was recorded by this guy, Eddie Nowak. And it is the most disturbing song. It's about a serial killer. Wow. And it is the most disturbing song you've ever heard. But the language of it is so visual.
Okay.
And it's like, so I like visual language. I like that in movies and books too.
Sure.
I'm really influenced by the love of film that I had never went away, like the old cartoons and stuff like that never went away. So I'm just as equally as influenced by like, comic books, the golden age comic books, not superhero comics. That's I'm into like Donald Duck comics and things like that. Of the 40s and 50s. The stuff that DuckTales was based on. Anyway, so like stuff like that, old movies, and if I have an idea, if I can visualize an idea, then I'll write the song down around it. So that really influences my songwriting more than anything.
And so to hear you say that and to know the truth is out there, it makes total sense now that you say that, I almost want to ask you if you're like into conspiracies and all that, because you're basically
not necessarily
talking about
that.
It's like a love song about like UFOs in a way that's so interesting.
Well, so that came about. I got over one summer. I got really into rewatching the X-Files.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, I just watched them maybe like a year ago and kind of went back and watched them.
I was obsessed with. I liked the visual of David Duchovny and Gillian Anderson together as like two people that stand together.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't get them like out of my mind. And it was one of those things that I, got hyper into for that summer. And all my other friends were into it. And, and it kind of just, I was like, no one's ever wrote a country. So many country topics have been covered today. You got the trains, mama, trucks, thing, but no one's ever written a song about the X-Files in country music. So I was like, you know what? Somebody should do that.
That's so
cool. So I did it.
I love that. That's awesome. That's cool. I like that a lot. Because when I heard it, I was like, all right, I totally get it, and the truth is out there, obviously. Mm-hmm. So that was cool, and I'm open-minded to anything, especially ideas. So, and I've been for a long, long time, even like the whole conspiracy, all that stuff, it's like, I'm interested.
That stuff's fun.
Yeah, it's just to learn something beyond the mainstream or, just mainstream thoughts and ideas, not even necessarily the news or anything like that, but just, just to think outside the box, and that's just being a creative, I would say, and, and to be someone so visual, like, I've always been jealous of people that could draw and can do art, because I can't, I can't draw. I mean, I could if I really practice and try, but I'm so far behind now. Like
I'm out of practice.
No, I'm not even close. I'm doing things like, with computers and stuff and barely just tapping into anything, but, no, that's really cool. So, also, I wanted to ask you like about your vocal delivery. Is there an influence on that? And because I feel just from my own experience and learning, I'm all basically self-taught, everything, guitar, singing, and podcasting, everything. Just I do it myself, and my experience has always taught me that I've never been able to rely on other people, not out of like flakiness or anything like that, but just the people I've always been around or tried to seek out were just never really on my level. Not to say that I'm most advanced or anything, but I'm just so, like you said, I'm all in. Give a mouse a cookie and I'll ask for milk. Like that's me too. I'm the same exact way. And in all of my experiences and trying to do something with that, I'm always by myself. I always have to do it myself and find ways myself, and I don't use that as a crutch, but it's just, it can be a little, it can bring me down, just kind of like, man, nobody wants to play with me. Nobody wants to have fun with me. I'm the only one, but it's not true, but that's the way I feel,
I agree with that. I'm self-taught on most of my stuff too.
Sure.
What little teaching I got came through oral traditions, talking to old people, and I was very fortunate to get into country music as the last bit of the first generation people were passing away. Mm-hmm. And I got to meet a lot of them.
Oh, that's cool.
And through my own precociousness. I got to meet a lot of people that were like C and D level country stars in the 50s. And I just let them talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
I asked that, a lot of people hadn't cared to ask these people anything.
Right.
And I was, especially, somebody that was like 13, 14 years old,
Right.
they would just like tell me a bunch of stuff. And I learned a lot from that. And that has influenced my approach to things.
Okay.
As far as on a musical sense. Now, back to vocally.
Yes.
That changes with the style of music that I'm singing. I like, I'm very influenced by, like, obviously Roy Acuff. That's who, when I first started, that's who I wanted to sound like.
Okay.
And he sings with big, open throat, kind of Appalachian kind of singing.
Yeah.
But then I also, because I have this like R&B and rock and roll side of me,
yeah,
I was influenced by like people like Big Joe Turner and Louis Jordan, and some even through record collecting, I got into like 20s dance bands,
mm-hmm.
and people like Rudy Valley, and even people into the Cylinder era and that sort of thing. And so it all depends. I like people that are off the beaten track.
Yeah.
And I always have liked voices that are weird. That's why I like rockabilly so much.
Yeah.
Is there's a lot of hiccups, and there's a lot of vocal gymnastics that goes on that
mm-hmm.
doesn't really happen in any other type of music.
Right.
That I find really cool, and it's rockabilly is kind of like all the stuff that I liked in one package.
Yeah.
It's jazz, it's blues, it's country, it's pop, it's all this stuff.
Yeah.
With this like energy too, and that's another thing that
an attitude
really
too. Yeah.
Yeah, attitude has to be there, even if it's something very mainstream.
Right.
I like it to have an attitude.
Yeah.
I like either very, very produced mainstream stuff, or I like stuff that's, Hazel Adkins or something like that. That's like outsider art.
Yeah.
And there's not really an in between.
Right.
I find that in between space very boring and bland.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's.
It
all depends on the song and what I'm going for. Like Truth Is Out There. I actually wrote that song for somebody.
Okay.
And when I write songs, I actually have a person in mind to sing them. But 9 times out of 10, they're dead. So I have to sing them.
Okay.
And so I wrote that in the style of this guy named Oni Wheeler.
Okay.
Who has this very interesting, deep voice.
Yeah.
And I just love. He's one of my favorite musicians. Period.
Yeah.
So I wrote that song in his style.
That's also what I was.
So
gonna
I had to
ask.
sing it in his style.
Yeah, I was going to ask that too as well. Like, do you hear yourself in the songs that you know? I mean, mimicry basically. Like being a mimic is how I learned. I would hear certain people's voices and songs and be like, oh, I can hit that. I can hit that range, and I would save that one, and then it'd be somebody else. Oh, I can hit that too, and then it just all kind of developed into, this is my range. It's
right.
Eddie Vedder of Pearl Jam to whatever,
mm-hmm.
And that kind of like, oh, these are the artists that I pull from for like mimicry. You know what I mean? Like I'm trying to sound like them, but then at some point I had to find my own voice and sound like Isaac, not anybody else,
Well, that's kind of the interesting thing, is that I feel like you have to, a lot of musicians are so busy trying to find their voice too early,
right.
I think,
right.
that they don't learn their standards, they don't learn their basics.
Right. And
copying people has a lot of beneficial uses, because if there's somebody that's doing it right, then you'll learn to do it right.
Sure.
And then you can develop your own thing, but you have to have a good baseline first before you can, and I find a lot of musicians don't want to spend that step. You need like a good like 5 years where you're just trying to be a copy, and then like one day you'll find your own style. And I think also being open
Right.
to whatever you come across.
Yeah.
One of the best things about being an artist is you get to see the world like an artist.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm walking down the street, I'm not looking at it like regular people are looking at it. I have this, because I wanted to be a cartoonist, I kind of see the world in these, like, I can figure out like little stories for people as they're walking down the street. And like, a nice outfit will really excite me, like creatively, if I see it in a magazine or something like that. And that I kind of have that kind of approach to
do you
but you have to have good taste before you can have bad taste,
right?
Sure. John Waters said.
Do you write a lot? Do you write poetry? Do you write any like short stories, anything like that, or are you more just visually like?
I've gotten into writing. I write about like music history and stuff.
Sure.
If I'm writing mainly, and I read a lot of I like to read a bunch of like art theory books and things like that.
Yeah.
And but really, when I get excited about something creatively, I go and find a book, or I go look online, and I just like try to immerse myself in that world for as long as I can until I get tired of it.
Sure.
And try to deconstruct everything in it to try to figure out how it works.
Okay.
And then put the pieces back together.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I operate musically and just creatively in general.
Sure. And another thing I wrote here, just a question, but basically like, and I'll chop it up, but I put how crucial is style? Like I said, I call everything style. I don't say genre. I mean, but that, I know what I mean when I say it, and like, so even the way you dress and, and like I said, when, talking to Vaden and getting into these artists that I'm finding now, and there's such an old school style to them, to you, how crucial is that to relaying the message to the masses or to whoever's paying attention? Like, is it a standard? Is it part of the thing to do that, or is it an individual thing and you guys are all just individuals coming together and you just happen to be, I mean, because talking to people like you, guys like you, I'm all the way, I'm a Southern California kid, all the way in the West Coast, and I'm exposing myself to these things in a way, and nobody's showing me, I'm discovering for myself. So that's why I'm so interested in talking to you guys, because I'm like, what's going on in your head? What is all this? What is this? Like, I want to know. I'm very curious, and so.
Well, I think number one, style is everything.
Sure.
You can look at a building and it can be the best constructed building in the world, but if it's not, if the architect hasn't done their job from an aesthetic standpoint, then you're just going to walk right by it.
Right.
And so I think style is very important. Now, speaking on other people's style, I think there's a lot of people that are into vintage, especially right now.
Sure.
And it kind of comes in waves. There was the whole swing revival in the 90s, and it ebbs and flows. And I think we're kind of in maybe a minor upswing right now in vintage stuff, but I would be wearing these clothes even if I wasn't a musician.
Is it like a regional thing? I'm just asking.
I wouldn't. No. I'm the only person.
Okay. So it's you.
I'm the only person.
Your personal
in a room.
Style.
Yeah, it's my personal thing.
Sure.
There is a strong country music scene, vintage country scene in Nashville, in Asheville,
right.
Here in the Tri-Cities, but it's more, it is more on the individual level. Like everybody brings their own thing to it.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny. We think of y'all on the West Coast as having a big, you know, vintage scene over there, because we always hear of like Viva Las Vegas and all the stuff that happens in like Southern LA and all that stuff, and all the hot rods and like lowriders and stuff like that. Like we envy that in a way.
Okay.
And wish that we could have like cruise ins and stuff here, which doesn't really happen so much. And,
so it's reciprocal.
You know,
it's everybody's the same. We just look at each other.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you guys are doing cool. Because I look at Japanese, in Japan, the Japanese in Japan.
Totally.
They take it 1,000% higher than anybody does. So, you know, it's very interesting. Very, very interesting. So, yeah, and you know, you're talking about like we've said a couple times, just the current state of music. You know, country's huge right now, and you know, like Sierra Farrell was one of the first artists that I really latched onto, like her and Coulter Wall, and you know, a couple other people, and that's kind of, they're the ones that got me started into where I'm at now. It's been like 4 or 5 years probably, and she's just huge right now, and I'm just like, wow, it's so crazy, you know. And it's very
it's even crazier for us because she was in that same busking scene that we all were, and we all, and so her success has really been you know, for, you know, we've known her for years, and so like it's nice that the rest of the country is catching on in a way. But you know, what I see, what I do is slightly less, it's definitely less commercial than that sort of thing.
For sure.
I think all that stuff helps.
Sure.
You know, it's like when Oh Brother Where Art Thou came out.
Yeah.
And, you know, Nickel Creek got really big for a while. And, you know, people, what I like about it now is we would used to have to explain to people what we were playing. And now people have an understanding that this is like, oh, this is vintage country, or this is vintage string band music, and things like that. Whereas used to, you would be on the street playing and people would think that you were playing polka music or something, like, you know, they had no concept of it. And I like to take everything to its extreme. So when I tell people I play hillbilly music, and that's a term that's somewhat controversial. A lot of people would like to think they're above that term, but I kind of wear it as a badge of pride, because all the people that I learned from that have now passed used to say that. And so I kind of consider myself in that tradition, as opposed to like outlaw country or straight honky tonk music, which is its own scene and its own thing that's like very different. So, you know, that's
personally, I think that the accessibility to music now is so rampant. You know, it's all out there, you know, and I think that helps expose people to different things in one search. You know, I mean, it helps me a lot. It helps me a lot, you know, and I appreciate it. You know, people talk about algorithms like they're this vicious monster, and I can see in a way, but if used for good, then it's productive. You know, it's progressive. It's not a regressive thing, you know? And so I appreciate it for sure. It helps me a lot. And I'm finding music that I love and I genuinely love. It's not just, like I said, it's not just the style. It's not this, it's the whole package. And I eat it.
That is a great thing.
Yeah.
You know, I've always been when I was first learning, when I was a teenager, I was the only person that played banjo, played guitar, played fiddle, played whatever, that even had any interest in anything that was over 5 years old. I went to a very large high school. I went to one of the largest high schools in South Carolina. And their graduating class was like 900. My graduating class was like 900 something people.
Yeah, that was like my school.
High school.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But what was funny about it was everybody there was from a somewhat rural area.
Right. Right.
But anyway, I was the only one that had any interest in anything like that. And that's part of the reason I got into radio, was to try to like play this music that I thought I mean, seriously, I mean, it was naive to think this, but I thought I was the only person on earth that knew what any of this was. And so that's why I'm part of the reason I got into radio, was to like share this music.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm still technologically behind in a lot of ways. Like, you know, I don't have internet really. Well, I have it. I just don't use it. But I have access to it, obviously. But I like the more analog forms of getting information out to people.
Sure.
And you know, radio is a powerful thing, and I've been in radio since I was 15. Nice. And been consistently on a station every week since I've been 15.
Awesome.
But part of that came from you know, wanting to share this. And so now that the fact that I can reach people through internet radio and streaming and share, I'm not as so much interested in sharing my music out there as I'm interested in sharing this music that because a lot of the stuff I play is people that only made one record.
Right.
And that record was only pressed like 50, maybe 100 copies.
Yeah.
70 years ago.
Yeah. Rarities.
And And so I just want to share this. I want to share all this music with everybody, and that's, you know, the internet is a great way to do that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's same, you know, and I feel the same way about what I do with my mixes and stuff. This is me, you know, and I'm older. I'm 45. I'm going to be 46 this year. So I'm kind of like on the back end of all of it. But, you know, it's the same reason, is I want to show people this music that I'm finding. You know, I DJ'd in my 20s, you know, and I was playing all the the old school radio, like Michael Jackson, Prince, and all that, you know, the party hits and all that stuff. And it was fine, you know, and when I would dig for records, I would find some things, this and that, but it was things that I wanted to hear, not what I could play at parties or at bars, or everybody wants to hear, to make their requests. And it's like, and I just got tired of it. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm done with this, because this is kind of my second pass at like, let me try and DJ again. But I gave myself like parameters of it's all gonna be within the like 3, 4, 5 years, no longer than that. All recent artists and all like genre based mixes of just new stuff, and I find so much music constantly, and it's so cool, and I love it. You know, not to say that it's not out there, but I'm putting it together the way that I see how it all fits together, you know, and that's kind of,
well, you know, it's a very interesting time for media delivery,
right?
In that there's so many people playing music, and everybody's uploading their music,
right?
But, you know, the record labels still operate the way the record labels have always operated,
right?
In that there's a top 40 playlist that goes out to all the big radio stations in the country,
right?
And most people don't even realize that there's any type of music scene, you know, be it country or metal or rap or whatever. There's a lot of people don't even realize there's people in their own backyard making incredible music.
Exactly. And I love it. I appreciate it so much. You know, it's a beautiful thing. It really is. You know, fear of oversaturation can be a thing, you know, with anything, music, podcasts, you know, I mean, there's always something in that way of competitive mentality, or, you know, I don't have that. I just want to do my thing, and that hopefully somebody hears it. And that's all I care about. You know, I'm not trying to make it big or anything, especially not in my 40s. You know, there's no, I'm well past that point, you know, but it's the appreciation for good music and just like style and vibes, you know, and cool people, just like-minded people that find interest in the same things. And, you know, I appreciate that way more than anything else.
You know, growing up around older people and specifically a lot of my musical mentors, I knew at the time were on their way out. I think that really ingrained in me that like life is short, so anything that you can do to make life more aesthetically pleasing and more pleasant for you as you're going through it is worth it.
Right.
And so that is kind of the underlying approach that I'm on. I'm almost on a quest to like make every second of my life filled with some kind of creative spark,
Yeah.
and imagination and creativity.
For
So
sure.
in any channel that it comes through.
Yeah. So let's talk about your music. Well, the Star Sonic. What would you consider that? A radio?
Yeah, radio show, and
Yeah.
we also DJ that out. I say we, me and my girlfriend also
Yeah.
DJ out at different places and
Cool.
things like that. So it's one half an internet radio show, mix, podcast, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
and other half a real event that people can go to and at different venues.
That's cool because I'm trying to do the same thing. With these playlists compiled, I want to go and play live at some point and play it out.
Yeah.
It's hard because a lot of the same places want to hear the same music. There's a couple places but I don't. It requires certain types of technology like Serato and all these kinds of programs and stuff. And I'm more old school.
Right.
I don't have vinyl anymore. I definitely don't have that. Vinyl broke my back many years ago, so I'm done with vinyl.
I believe. Yeah, totally.
I'm more digital for sure. But I'll go somewhere like by the beach around here, and I'll just set up a speaker and I'll just start playing. And I've had random people just come up and be like, "Oh, it sounds good, man." I'm like, "Cool, thanks. My job is done." Right on. It's just because I just want to play it loud and I want somebody to hear it somewhere. But, for the bars and whatever stuff, you got to make there's certain, stipulations and
There's
things.
caveats.
Yeah. And I'm just kind of like, okay, well, I mean, I'll try at some point. And also my schedule is, I'm a single dad. And so scheduling is kind of hard. But,
Totally.
but
I get really selective about my gigs and places that I want to play.
Exactly. I want the right people to hear it. You know what I mean?
Right. People that are going to appreciate it.
Exactly.
And so, I don't play a lot of like random breweries and stuff that a lot of like people that do my kind of thing like play.
Sure.
Just because like, I've done that for a while and it's just soul crushing that you're like putting out all this energy to like share all this stuff. And to me, I feel because of, in a lot of ways, I was the last of the Mohicans for a long time, playing this music, that I have this like crusader mentality too, that I have to like introduce this to new people that haven't heard it to keep this alive. And all of that sort of thing. And so it's hard to do that when most people are there to watch a football game.
Right. Exactly. And you're just spinning vinyl when you play live?
Yeah, all vinyl, 2 turntable. In fact, the turntable that I use is a mid-60s
nice. Old
school record player.
Oh, yeah.
That they used to use for lectures and things like that. It's very loud and has a very good like preamp stage in it.
Yeah.
And just 2 of those and a box of records. And the main reason that I do vinyl isn't just because it's old school or whatever.
Sure.
A lot of times it's the only format that this music came out on.
Right.
And you can't get it on any other format.
Right.
And so it's somewhat of a necessity to play it.
Right.
On vinyl, because a lot of it isn't even on YouTube.
Right.
A lot of the rare records aren't even on YouTube. So
that's cool.
I gotta bring records.
Yeah,
and luckily I don't 78s. I used to do it 78s.
Yeah.
And you want back breaking.
Yeah.
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 And those break if you look at them the wrong way. Those are very like fragile.
Yeah. They can be very fragile. Yeah, for sure. That's cool. So how about, I want to ask this, how important or unimportant is social media as far as like, and I put demographics in a way, just in my thought of like you know, obviously you just said you're trying to reach a certain crowd, you know, with what you're trying to put out there, but like how crucial is social media to what you're doing? Is it crucial? Is it something that's necessary, or, you know, what's your take on that?
I'm kind of it is a necessary evil in a lot of respects.
Yeah.
It can be hard to break above the noise floor of social media,
Right.
and I have a hard time. Like, I don't know how to play the algorithm. I really don't. I have no clue whatsoever on that.
Same.
And that seems like an ever evolving carrot on a stick that I can't figure out.
Yeah.
But the one thing I'll say about social media that I mainly use it for is connecting with other DJs and seeing what they've got in their play box.
Yeah.
And I use it as a tool to learn. And, you know, I do keep connected with my audience. A lot of them, you know, I announce my shows on there, and that's how they find out about it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't have like a big website, you know, that has all my tour dates and all that stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, you know, in a lot of ways, because I'm kind of a grassroots person, I prefer that to having to pay a site to like to host a domain and all that stuff like that is not, you know, something I'm interested in.
Yeah.
So it's a double-edged sword, but if I knew how to work it better, I'm sure I would have a much more broader opinion of it. But as it is, I'm kind of you know, necessary evil to indifferent about it.
Right, indifferent. That's the word I was literally thinking. I was like, okay, yeah, and I feel the same way. You know, I post what I do, but, you know, just I rely more so on the people that I'm interviewing. You know, not everybody, but, you know, some. I've interviewed young kids, younger bands, you know, from teens to 20s. I'm open to talking to anybody as long as they're interested and, you know, got a story, you know, and so I kind of rely more on them, like, hey, spread the word, you know, because I'll put it on mine, but that's it. I'm pretty tech savvy, but I'm not a social media person. You know, I have it, but like you, I only use it just to, okay, I'm putting this out. Okay, I did this, and that's it. And I leave it at that because I don't have really time for it, you know, or you know, patience, you know.
You know, if like I say, if I knew how to work it better, I'd spend more time on it.
Right.
And, you know, but, you know, as it is, I use it for its intended purpose. I use it to get in touch with people that I don't see on a regular basis.
Right.
You know.
Same. And that's how I get to meet and talk to people like yourself. And I really appreciate that, for sure.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's get into the music.
Okay.
So I always ask the artists that I interview, you know, give me some influential songs. And since you only have 2 recorded songs out there right now, we went on 4. I usually ask for 3, but we went for 4. And so usually I'll play them and, you know, we can talk over it, or, you know, when I play yours, we'll just play the song straight through and then we'll talk after. But for these, if you want to say something, or maybe I'll ask you a question. But like you said, first one up is Roy Acuff, Wabash Cannonball. Anything you want to say about that? I mean, you kind of already touched on it.
Well, you know, that it's Roy Acuff is still my favorite singer. My tastes go all over the place, but he was the person that, you know, seeing him perform this on TV was, for whatever reason, was enough to get me hooked, and it's still my favorite song. And there's something about this particular record of it that brings a smile to my face, and it just excites me every time I hear it. It's like I hear it for the first time.
Well, let's hear it. Here we go. Roy Acuff, Wabash Cannonball. Let's go.
From the great Atlantic Ocean to the wide Pacific shore, from the queen of flowing mountains to the Southville by the shore. She's mighty tall and handsome and known quite well by all. She's the combination on the Wabash Cannonball. She came down from Birmingham one cold December day. As she rolled into the station, you could hear all the people say, there's a girl from Tennessee, she's long and she's tall. She came down from Birmingham on the Wabash Cannonball. Eastern states are dandies, so the people always say. From New York to St. Louis and Chicago, by the way. From the hills of Minnesota where the rippling waters fall, no changes can be taken on that Wabash Cannonball. Here's to Daddy Claxton, may his name forever stand, and always be remembered round the courts of Alabama. His earthly race is over and the curtains round him fall. We'll carry him home to victory on the Wabash Cannonball. Listen to the jingle, the rumble and the roar, as she glides along the woodland through the hills and by the shore. Hear the mighty rush of the engineer, that lonesome hobo squaw. Hear traveling through the jungles on the Wabash Cannonball.
Nice. There you go. What is a Wabash Cannonball? Is that a train?
That's the train. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Man,
that's the train.
So hearing, I almost thought it was a live recording from hearing the woo, but he's actually mimiking a train whistle.
Yeah,
right?
he's doing that from his throat. And the guy that I was talking about earlier, Oni Wheeler, used to do it live. But on that record, Acuff is doing this thing where he's like blowing from his like the bottom of his throat through his teeth.
Yeah. And
part of Roy Acuff's like show was that he would balance a fiddle. He would put like the bow through the bridge of a fiddle and balance it on his chin.
Oh, wow.
And one night that didn't go right and it cracked his front teeth.
Oh.
And he had to get someone else to do that whistle. But, you know, so, but that record has an energy to it. That song is easy to play in a like almost like foxtrotty, like kind of square way, but there's just some kind of energy to that particular record. You know, that's not the first recording that Acuff did of that.
Okay.
The very first recording was in the late 30s, and it has another guy singing the vocal.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't have that energy, but that one in particular does. So that's the one that's grabbed me. And
I was going to ask, you know, is it a rhythm thing, or, you know, I mean, because it's got like a bounce to it, you know, and
I think it's rhythm. It
sounds like a train, you know, I mean, like it has the motion of a train to it, you know, and it's kind of.
I think it's everything. Bounce, I think it's rhythm. I think it's the bounce. I think it's a very visual song.
Yeah.
Lyrically, and Acuff didn't write that song. That's associated with the Carter family originally.
Okay.
But he made it famous.
Okay.
And that was his signature song for his career. And Roy Acuff was known as the king of country music.
Nice.
And largely on the back of that song and others throughout the 40s.
Yeah.
But anyway, that record in particular is just something about the band was very hot at that time. And he has an accordion on that record, which he didn't keep accordion through most of his career.
Uh-huh.
And a lot of people are like, they hear accordion, they think like Weird Al or polka music or something like that.
Right.
But in country and like particularly like Western music of the time, there was a lot of really cool accordion players.
Yeah.
That's one instrument that has eluded me, and I wish I could play it. I would give so many other skills away on the other instruments if I could learn to play the accordion really well. So
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, when I heard you and Vader doing that Blue Plate special, performance, there was a song that you guys did. I don't know, it wasn't that song, but there was a song where he did the same vocal train whistle thing. That was so cool.
Yeah, that was a common thing among hobo singers back in.
So good. I was like, holy shit, that's so amazing. I was so at all.
Yeah, it blows people away.
That was awesome. Yeah, and there was a thing, I guess, that he sounds like Hank Williams. I'm not a big Hank Williams fan, but apparently he kind of pigeonholed himself into.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Vaden has had a lot of different arcs throughout his career. He's delved into a lot of different styles, and I think what I was saying earlier about having to explain to people what we were playing for a long time.
Yeah.
Hank Williams was a big enough name that if you were playing anything remotely close to that it's kind of like if you're a folk singer, you get compared to Woody Guthrie.
Bob Dylan,
it's inevitable.
Right.
And Vaden had a higher voice than I do.
Yeah.
So he got to be Hank Williams.
That's funny. That's so funny.
Yeah.
He almost sees it as like a curse. He's like, shit.
Yeah.
Because when I was talking to him, I was like, oh, okay, cool. I don't know. I'm not familiar with Hank. I mean, I know who he is and I've heard his music, but I didn't see it that way. I just like your style, bro. You sound great. That's all.
Well, gotten a little bit more literate in their country knowledge to I don't think that's really followed him to this point. It's something he got over, in other words.
Good. All right, cool. Next up, we've got the Gillis Brothers, Rock Bottom.
Okay, so all that I was saying about being into bluegrass earlier, this band ruined bluegrass for me.
Okay.
Because in the best of ways, this where I'm at right now in Bristol, Tennessee, and if you don't know about Bristol, Bristol's a border town, and the main street of Bristol is literally the state line between Tennessee and Virginia.
Okay.
One side of the street is Tennessee and the other side is Virginia.
That's funny.
And Southwest Virginia has a very rich musical history, as does East Tennessee. And we're known as the birthplace of country music.
Okay.
Because in the 1920s, the Carter family and Jimmy Rogers made their first records here. And I work at the Birthplace of Country Music Museum. That's where my terrestrial radio show, Honky Tonk Hit Parade, comes out of and has since 2016. Anyway, the Stanley Brothers are another group from Southwest Virginia that is one of the main three founding groups of bluegrass music.
Okay.
You have Bill Monroe, who's credited with starting bluegrass music, Flatt and Scruggs, who did the Beverly Hillbillies theme song. Most people know that. And Bonnie and Clyde, they did the theme song for that too, Foggy Mountain Breakdown. But the Stanley Brothers are the third, and my favorite of those three, because they sing with very intense they sing with very intense harmonies. Okay. And their music, currently a lot of goth fans are getting into the Stanley Brothers because they have dark overtones to a lot of their songs are about death and graveyards and this cool mountain, ghosts and things like that.
Do they do like murder ballads too? I've heard of murder ballads.
Yeah, they do. Okay. Yeah. Sure. Pretty Polly is the most famous Ralph Stanley murder ballad. And if you're familiar with the Oh Brother Where Art Thou, the song Man of Constant Sorrow they made famous originally before George Clooney.
Yeah.
So anyway, all that to say, the Gillis Brothers are a group from Florida. Well, the swamps of Georgia. I mean, not Florida. God, they'd hate me if I said.
I don't.
But it's this group they took the Stanley sound and made it super intense. Okay. And when I was about 14 and I was really deep into bluegrass music, Larry Gillis, who's the banjo player on this record, had a band And it was the most intense, to this day, out of all of the hardcore bands, punk bands, whatever, the most intense show I've ever seen.
Awesome.
Was the Gillis Brothers and the Larry Gillis Band. And it was so good that it actually, no band has ever been able to top it for me.
Wow.
And it turned me into a snob because the bloom was off the rose with bluegrass for me.
Yeah.
As far as like modern bands. And I have a lot of friends that play this music and everything. And like, it was just like, they've since disbanded and they don't really play much anymore, but God, that was such a good band.
That's awesome.
And no one has ever been able to come close to it for me. And so that, anyway, you'll hear it in this. This is in the studio, they were great, but live, they were even better. And it really, really took my, the intensity thing. That was the big lesson I took from Larry Gillis and the Gillis Brothers.
Nice.
Was just everything with this insane kind of tempo and intensity. So
cool.
You'll hear it in the record.
Let's check it out. Here we go. Rock Bottom. Let's go.
Some people say I'm crazy, maybe this is true, but I still love you, darling, no matter what you do. I know that you've been running around with another man. You still want to have fun, and I don't understand. Rock bottom, I hit rock bottom when I fell in love with you. Rock bottom, I hit rock bottom when I fell in love with you. Giving all my love and all my money to, but you still want another man, so what is there to do? I could go and leave you, dear, but what good would it do? In the end, I'd lose again, and I would still want you. Rock bottom, I hit rock bottom when I fell in love with you. Rock bottom, I hit rock bottom when I fell in love with you. All your good town friends gone, you said they'd let you down. You done hit rock bottom, just like I said you would. Sorry for you, darling, but I'm on rock bottom. Rock bottom, I hit rock bottom when I fell in love with you. Rock bottom, I hit rock bottom when I fell in love with you.
Yeah, definitely hear the intensity, man. Very clean, very powerful,
Yes.
very clean. That banjo was blowing my mind right there, man.
Very hard to play.
Yeah,
I mean,
I can imagine.
That's bluegrass that's influenced by thrash. You know, that was going on at the same. That record's from the mid '90s.
Okay.
Even though it sounds like much older, that
Yeah.
record's from the mid '90s.
Yeah.
And God, just like I said, however good that record is,
Yeah.
live it was twice as fast and twice as hard. And bluegrass has kind of had this they kind of have this image problem.
Okay.
Where they're afraid to go into it's very stayed in its lane.
Okay.
And somewhat resistant to innovation.
Okay.
And the Gillis Brothers weren't the biggest bluegrass band by any means. When I saw them, it was at this place called the Anderson Jockey Lot, which is like a flea market
Okay.
And they were just like set up playing there. And the lineup that I saw was Larry Gillis, this guy Alex Leach, who is just slightly older than me and still makes very good music today. And he had this fiddle player who lives in California now, actually, Ella Nyman,
Okay.
who has a band called Hank and Ella's Damn Fine Country Band, which is I'm not exactly sure where they're based out of, but anyway, that was a great lineup. Those three in particular just blew me away. And a lot of times, if you go to see a bluegrass show, especially now, the people that are super hyped in bluegrass have been the same people since like the mid '80s that are still like pretty hyped and stuff.
Yeah.
And I kind of got bored with that kind of. Believe it or not, they use a lot of click tracks and like auto tune in bluegrass, which you wouldn't expect.
Interesting. Wow.
And it just, compared to that, everything just was, especially that was contemporary to that.
Yeah.
It's just so lame to me.
Crazy.
Nothing had that kind of intensity or drive to it. And so when I say, that group ruined bluegrass for me, it's like once they disbanded, it's hard to find stuff that's that intense and that good. And I wish that could come back. And
yeah.
There's no reason why it shouldn't, other than these made up bluegrass music scene rules that you can't upset the apple cart in.
Sure.
But, that's a whole nother subject.
No, that's cool, man. I'm definitely gonna dive into them. You're gonna have to send me some songs so you can hit me to their feels, man. That was awesome. I dug it. I totally dug it.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Next up, we got Mary Ann Fisher, Put on My Shoes.
Okay, so I've always been back and forth between old time music and R&B, jump blues, and early rock and roll. That's always been the like two sides of the coin for me.
Yeah.
Mary Ann Fisher is famous for singing with Ray Charles.
Okay.
And she's the voice on Hit the Road Jack. She's the female voice on that. And Nighttime is the Right Time and all that. But she made a few solo records, and this record is insanely rare. I don't own it because if I owned it, I could put a good down payment on a house.
Wow. Okay.
It's a very rare and very valuable record. But when I heard it for the first time, it's just the perfect encapsulation of everything that I like about R&B. It's the attitude, the swing to it, the just cool factor of it, the gospel elements to it, and just it works as a moody dance song.
Yeah.
It works as a Northern soul song. It works as a lowrider song. It hits all the boxes. So when I was thinking of a song that encapsulates the R&B side of my personality and that in the soul music side of my personality, I was like, this is a good encapsulation of all that.
That's so cool, man. And I really appreciate that about you. Like, I was listening to your latest Star Sonic, mix, and you played an Impressions song, and I was like, oh, damn, I heard Curtis Mayfield. I was like, that's Curtis Mayfield. You're like, oh, it's the Impressions. I was like, oh, okay. Like, oh, I love that. That's so cool. And
love the Impressions.
And it just reminds me of me, you know what I mean? Like, I grew up with Motown and doo-wop, and that's what my parents were listening to, and James Brown and, all of that. And so, but then, when I started finding my own music, it was like rock and heavy stuff. And then up to now, like I said, country and reggae. I love everything. And to me, it's all the same, but, it all makes sense to me, and I assume you see it exactly the same. That's why people want to pick things apart. And it's like, no, just shut up and listen, or you obviously have no gauge for feel, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
that's kind of the difference.
One thing that's interesting about the modern country scene that's going on right now that I wish they were a little bit more open to is this kind of R&B and soul influence. To me, as somebody that grew up in South Carolina, there was a lot of crossover, and I didn't even necessarily see them as different genres or musical styles.
Right.
The very first radio station that I was on was an oldie station that was in the back of an Allstate insurance building.
Nice.
And I was 15, and I would get to go into school late because I would do morning radio.
Wow.
On this radio station. I was the only DJ there. It was owned by this guy who was in his 90s named T.C. Lewis, who paid me under. He's dead now, so I can say this. He paid me under the table, and like when I just signed on there, he's like told me, "Oh, I got 3 weeks to live, so go ahead." And he ended up living for 4 years. But anyway, my Saturday morning show was 1 hour of country and bluegrass and 1 hour of Motown, soul, and oldies.
Yeah.
And that it was in South Carolina, even if you go to like there were these little like jam picking circle things that people used to go to called Opries.
Okay.
That were a lot of places in the South had them, but there was a bunch in the upstate of South Carolina when I was growing up, to the point where every night of the week you could go hear free live music played by these 80, 90-year-old people.
Yeah.
And they all sang blues songs, and they all sang country songs, and no one thought anything about it. And it wasn't until I got into a music scene that I even knew there was a difference.
Wow.
So
were there specific places that held those, or was it could be anywhere and it was just a group of musicians?
Well, it could kind of be anywhere. Okay. There was some that were in church basements, some that were in people's garages that they had built a stage in, and they just invited people and all that sort of thing.
That's cool. Nice. All right, cool. Let's hear Marianne Fisher, Put On My Shoes. Let's go.
Great record.
Step in my place, you'll see what I mean. You know I feel, and you feel the pain in your heart. Baby, I've been let down more times than I can remember. How you cheated on poor little me from January to December. Put yourself in my place, or you'll see what I mean. You know I feel, and you feel a pain in your heart. I've always been faithful, and I've always been true. But there's gotta be a change in you. Well, put on my shoes for a day. Put on my shoes. Put on my shoes for a month or two. You know what I've been through. Go on and have your fun. Get all is said and done. If you got any doubt, you want to find out, put yourself in my place and you'll see. Put on my shoes for a day. Put on my shoes for a week. Put on my shoes for a month or two. You know what I'm through. Put on my shoes. You'll get the blues. You'll get the blues if you put on your shoes.
I like that. That's good. Put on my shoes, you'll get the blues.
Isn't that a cool song? God, it's cool. So cool.
I dug it. A lot of attitude. Definitely a lot of attitude right there.
And, Marianne Fisher kind of got screwed out of a solo career through her association with Ray Charles. And that record in particular, was kind of suppressed at the time as to not upset Ray Charles's career.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that's kind of a typical story when you're dealing in these one-off records and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But God, what a, you know, Macho Man Randy Savage says, the cream always rises to the top.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that's such a good record.
That's cool. Oh yeah. All right, next you picked the Head Cody's Ça plane pour moi.
Yeah. So
this is a cover, right? Obviously.
Yes.
Yeah.
But what a cover though. I've always been into girl groups. I love that sound that there's like a certain kind of harmonies that like people like the Ronettes had, and the Dixie Cups and a bunch of other records. And you know, there's a certain emotional intensity to all those girl group records that I love, and this band really encapsulates what I like about garage music too.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of my sound that we haven't really touched on, the 60s garage punk that I'm into. And even though this is a 90s band, they really got that sound down, and the intensity, and just fun music.
Yeah.
You know, just, and once again, it's that intensity, and the guitar parts are so good, and the singing, and this is something that's kind of a more recent in the grand scheme of things. Like, I didn't grow up with 60s garage punk music. I found that, you know, along the way through collecting Vanity Press records and stuff like that. And, but when I hear it, it just gave me this like whole new lease of energy and all this stuff that was missing in other forms of music. So
cool.
Anyway, the Head Coatees.
Let's check it out.
En 4 couleurs. Allez hop, un matin.
It was so funny when I heard it, for the first time when you sent it to me, and I was like, oh, I know that song. Like,
Yeah.
it's from National Lampoon's European Vacation, and I was watching that when I was like 6, 7, 8 years old. So it just was like, oh, okay, and like I was like, wait, no, that's not the original.
It gives you this like youthful toddler energy, where you just the way like toddlers kind of do that dance where they just jump up and down, like that. Yeah, it's kind of makes you want to do the same thing, and I just love music.
You're just like.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
Exactly.
Cool. But it was cool that it was a song that I was like, oh, I know that song. Like, I don't know who even plays the original, but it just took me back. I was just like, oh shit, I love that song because of that movie and all. It was just funny, a nostalgic thing.
Yeah. And the sound of that record influenced the sound of "Truth Is Out There."
Oh, nice.
Especially the guitar tones and all of that. So. We want to get into that. We can.
Let's do it. All right. This is Mr. Bailey George. Song is called "Truth Is Out There." Let's go.
Well, you come in this house, pitching a fit. I'm telling you, babe, I'm getting real tired of it. There's something strange. It ain't exactly clear. Feels like I'm working for the FBI, tearing apart your sweet little lies. The truth is out there, but I'm at home waiting on you. Well, I'm spinning my wheels and watching the skies, making flying saucers out of every plane that goes by. I'm a smoking man down to his last cigarette. While you're out to doing things that I'd rather forget. I'm a little green man who's fed up with the blues. Like Dana, Captain Scully, I'm a skeptical too. The truth is out there, but I'm at home waiting on you. Doing things that I'd rather forget. I'm a little green man who's fed up with the blues. Like Dana, Catherine, Scully, I'm a skeptical too. The truth is out there, but I'm at home waiting on you. Well, the truth is out there, but I'm at home waiting on you.
Nice. I love that song. I really do love that song. And now that you say it, it comes from the X-Files. Now I hear all the wordplay, the smoking man, the lone gunman. I was like, oh, now I totally get it. That's awesome.
Well, I'm glad to know that it works, even not knowing that it's from the X-Files.
Yeah, no, not at all. Not at all. I just didn't catch it until you exposed it, basically. And I was like, oh, now it makes total sense. That's cool.
Good.
Man. So, go ahead.
Oh, well, I was just going to say, I'm really happy with the sound of that record.
Yeah.
My girlfriend, Jessica Stiles, they call her Jukebox Jess. She plays a snare drum on that record.
Yeah. Okay.
And people think it's a whole kit.
Yeah.
but it's just one snare drum.
Wow.
And that's a trio record, and I'm really proud of the sound that we all were able to come out of that. And that's part of a larger album. If you just got that on Spotify, that's part of a larger album that was put out as a cassette.
Okay.
And that has a bunch of covers and stuff like that.
Nice.
That there's only exists in the physical world. But anyway, I'm really pleased with that song in particular. As far as that being my first single that I wrote and all that sort of thing like that, then I'm glad that it still has these legs and people they're still listening to it like 2 or 3 years after it came out.
Can people pick up the cassette like on Bandcamp or something? Or?
We're mostly sold out of them.
Oh, okay.
The record label Collapse Records, KOLLASP, has a few, and I think there's even a couple on Discogs. So if you type in Bailey George and the Oscillators into Discogs, you should be able to get a copy there. But they're radioactive green little cassettes.
Dope.
So
awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. So your last song, The Hobo's Friend.
Yeah, that's a recent song that I wrote earlier this year. Okay. And that one comes from being here in Bristol. Okay. Like I said earlier, is considered the birthplace of country music.
Yeah.
And a lot of people know the Carter family through Johnny Cash and his marriage to June Carter.
Yeah.
And they're familiar with the Carter family. But at the time, just as influential, if not more influential, was this guy Jimmy Rogers. And he was known as America's Blue Yodeler, and he really is one of the first people to combine blues and like old time music together in a really popular way.
Okay.
And all of the yodeling that you hear in singing cowboys like Gene Autry and all that, so many people in the first generation, the first wave of country music, were influenced by Jimmy Rogers. Nice. And a lot of them started as Jimmy Rogers imitators. So I wrote this song. I was in downtown Bristol, and steps away from where Jimmy Rogers made his first record. And there's this train that comes through and that we hear constantly.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard the whistle, and I thought about, Jimmy Rogers, so influential. When he died, there was all these people that wrote tribute songs to him. Mm-hmm. You could make like 2 albums worth of just these tribute songs that people made to him. And I was like, maybe I should try my hand at writing a Jimmy Rogers tribute song. And I wrote it for Hank Snow, who was a big country star in the 50s that was very influenced by Jimmy Rogers. Mm-hmm. And of course, he died in the 80s, so I had to sing it. And that's kind of, I wrote it in his style and everything, and using the visual language of hobos. And I was familiar with that, background and everything like that. So
cool. Let's check it out. Here we go. The Hobo's Friend.
On a train ride home from the sunny south, riding on the C&O, I had no money for to pay my fare, so in an empty box I roamed. I met a man I had never seen. His face was pale and thin, but he looked real nice, and he shook my hand and treated me like a friend. He said, I've traveled east and I've traveled west with a boxcar for my home. I've played my songs for many a mile, and I've become quite well known. I've seen many a man who was down and out, and I've heard those freight trains cry. But I'll tell you, son, of this life I'm done now. I'm headed for the land of the sky. talked for hours while the ties rolled by like thunder at my feet. He made me glad I had hopped that train and that we had a chance to meet. Like Railroad Bill or Casey Jones, his legend seems so high. And he played me a tune while the cinders flew and the train rolled on in the night. He said, "Now, son, life ain't no fun when on the rails you ride. With the evening stars, your only friend, and the world passing by on the fly. And no time for pals or good time gals when you're the brakeman's king. Because when you become the emperor of the North, you ain't got a doggone thing." I awoke next day and I was sad to say to the lonely man goodbye. And if I live 1,000,000 years, I'll never quite know why. There are folks who brag of their wealth and fame, but unto my grave I'll boast I never will forget the night I met Jimmy Rogers' ghost. Yodelay, yodeloo, yodelay.
Nice. There you go. You met a ghost.
Sweet song. Yeah.
How did you record both songs? Was it all analog or was there any digital?
Well, the
involved?
Oscillator song "Truth Is Out There" was recorded to tape.
Okay.
Through a digital interface and all that, but like old school tape and all that, and that was recorded by this guy Moose Roberts, who is a local legend in his own right and a really cool out there kind of roots punk musician.
Cool.
And this guy Stephen Schonecker that helped him out, and we recorded all that live, recorded the whole album in an afternoon, and did a couple takes of everything, and that was it.
Nice.
Now, the Hobro's Dream I recorded on Audacity here.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Apartment.
Cool.
And it was just me and a guitar. I have in my head a full arrangement for a band for it that I would like to do at some point.
Sure.
But as it stands, because it's in the style of Jimmy Rogers, who's made most of his records with just a guitar, like that. So it works out.
Cool. Yeah, I was just wondering. I was like, is he strictly analog or is there some digital? So
no, there's a little bit of digital.
Got to take advantage of what you got.
Right. Well, that's the main thing.
For sure. Cool, man. Well, I really appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you giving me your time. Yeah, respect. Tell people where they can find you, social media, your Star Sonic and all that.
Well, for my music, you can find it on, you can find Truth Is Out There on Apple Music, Spotify, all that stuff. And I have a Bandcamp page, baileygeorge.bandcamp.com. And when I make new music, that's probably where it's going to go first.
Cool.
If you want to hear my radio shows, you can listen to the Honky Tonk Hit Parade, which is all 40s, 50s, and early 60s country, on Radio Bristol, on the Radio Bristol app, if you're outside of the Tri-Cities. Also, Starosonic Record Club is on Mixcloud, and I'm on Instagram, Boppin Bailey George, and all that stuff.
Awesome.
Come find me wherever I'm at.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you, man. I appreciate that, man.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This has been fun.
For sure. And much love and respect to anyone out there listening, anyone paying me with your attention. As always, I'm your most humble host, Dr. I. This has been your Blue Dreamer broadcast. Like I always say, stay tuned, stay connected, and until next time, much love and respect. Peace.